One of the Islanders' injured players returned to practice yesterday. We have the latest. We'll also discuss Anthony Beauvillier's future with the team. Is he part of the core? We've got our weekly farm report, our Islanders' birthday of the day, and a whole lot more coming up on this episode of the Locked On Islanders podcast.
You're Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Islanders fans, welcome to the Wednesday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast. So glad you could join us today, and thank you for making Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms. We've got a lot to discuss on today's show. One of the two Islanders who have been out of the lineup for about a week now with injuries has returned to practice. We've got the latest. Is Anthony Beauvillier part of the core of this team going forward? We'll debate that. We have our weekly farm report as we discuss all things Bridgeport Islanders, and we've got our Islanders birthday of the day, a big physical defenseman from the late 2000s, early 2010s. So make sure you join us for that. If you've got something Islanders related on your mind, if you have a question, a comment, a topic that you'd like us to discuss on the show, feel free to send us an email. The email address, lockedonislanders@gmail.com. And if you leave your first name and where you're from, we're happy to mention you on the show when we discuss whatever it is that's on your mind. You could also follow the show on Twitter at Locked On Isles, and you can follow me, Gil Martin, on Twitter at Ice Wars, NYR VSNYI. We'll keep you up to date on all the latest Islanders news, notes, and happenings, and I am live tweeting during nearly every Islanders home and road game. So I'll give you some instant insight and analysis, and always great to interact with fans during games and really any time. So feel free to contact me via Twitter, and great to always interact with the fans. All right, let's start with the news. Zdeno Chara returning to practice on Tuesday. He was back on ice with the Islanders. He's missed the last 5 games with an upper body injury, been on injured reserve retroactive to last Friday, February 26th. So right now, still waiting on whether or not, the fact that he's back at practice is good, but he is still on injured reserve, has to be activated, hasn't been yet. Mathew Barzal, who has also missed the last 5 games. Barzal with a lower body injury. He has yet to participate in practice, did not practice with the team on Tuesday, so it looks like Barzy is a little further behind Chara as far as his return. And if you think about it, I think that makes sense because you're talking about Barzal with a lower body injury. Even think back to when the injury happened. Barzal was hurt. We saw the replay. You could see him screaming in pain. He came back later that night to try to play. He could skate on a straight line, but changing direction, turning, big problem for him. And if you think about how much a part of his game, skating and the ability to change directions is, you know why Mathew Barzal, they're going to be conservative with him right now. When you add in the fact that the Islanders are pretty much all but officially eliminated from the playoff hunt right now, there's no need to rush Mathew Barzal back at this point. But as soon as we hear something about Barzy's status, we will let you know. Wanted to talk a little bit about Anthony Beauvillier. And, we've been talking throughout about the trade deadline, which is now less than 2 weeks away. Island is that he's not looking for a complete strip down of this team. He doesn't have to blow it up and build it back up from scratch. He still believes, and I think that the core of this team is solid. The long road trip to start the season in 3 stretch. But all take Lou Lamoriello 5 core, now contracts. Zdeno Chara, contract. Zach Parise, Al Clutterbuck. These guys, Andy Green, they're contracted at the end of the year. If you can get something for them at the trade deadline, Mathew Barzal, AG Pajot. But is Anthony Beauvillier part of the core of this Islanders team? And, coming into this season, Beauvillier really was expected to be on the second line with Brock Nelson and Josh. It hasn't worked itself out just yet. But, here's the thing. What is Anthony Beauvillier at this stage of his career? This year, 9 goals, 12 assists, 21 points. That puts him at a pace for about a 36, 37 point season over 80, minus 11 in the plus minus. His average ice time is almost 17 minutes, the second highest of his career. But what is he at this point? And he has never scored in his career in a 6th NHL season. 21 goals back in 2017, 2018. Essentially his highest total. 39 points in a season. Now, okay, it was in 68 games, and that season ended because of COVID. So let's say 45 points is his high. That's still, at best, more or less a little better than a point every other game. What is Anthony Beauvillier? And I think the answer at this point, he is third line forward. Occasionally, he could step up on the second line. He can give you a little unit in a pinch, but realistically, on a good team, Anthony Beauvillier is a third of a guy also. He's 24 years old. He'll be who he is. And more or less, this is who he's going to be. And if he stepped forward in his career, I'm not thinking he becomes a 25 goal, 55, 60 point guy. He is going to be, at best, a 5 goal, 50 point kind of a player. And a third line kind of a player. And to me, realistically, I don't think he is a necessary part of the core going forward. He is a useful piece, but they're asking him to be a top 6 forward a lot of the time. And quite honestly, that is not, he doesn't have the offensive skills to deuce the forward. He's definitely not a first liner. He's realistically not a second liner. To me, at this point where he's 24, he'll be 25 during the offseason, you can get something good for Beauvillier. If you can make a reasonable deal, I'm open to listening. Not because I think he's a terrible player, but because I think this is who he is, and we can spend that $4 million better bring in a younger player, perhaps a prospect, someone who could develop into something more rather than holding to Anthony Beauvillier. Love to hear what you all have to think about that. Feel free to email the show, again, LongIslanders@gmail.com, or make a comment on Twitter. Be interesting to hear everybody has to say. What's happening down on the farm? The Bridgeport Islanders played 3 games this past weekend, and we have the latest as to who the stars are and where the Islanders' top prospects are. So the farm report coming up and more on the Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Built Bar. This is the time of year I've pretty much given up on all my New Year's resolutions, but not this year. I'm sticking to my resolution to eat right thanks to Built Bar. It almost feels like it's not really a resolution because I actually enjoy eating them. Have you tried the Puffs? If you haven't, you're missing out on one of Built Bar's best tasting bars. Puffs are the first ever protein-infused marshmallow. They're fluffy, they're marshmallowy. They're not just a protein bar, they're a treat. And like all Built Bars, they're covered in 100% real chocolate. Puffs are a fan favorite. They include some incredible flavors like yummy, cinnamony churro, coconut marshmallow, and my favorite, banana cream pie. So good, they're going to be your new favorite. And most Built Bars contain just 130 calories, only 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, but pack 17 grams of protein. Compare that to a candy bar, which usually has around 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar, and dozens of net carbs. Go to Built.com, use promo code LOCK15, and get 15% off your order. That's promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at Built.com. Thank you for making Locked On Islanders your first listen. Now for your next listen, check out the Locked On Now podcast. Nightly recaps of every NHL game with analysis from our local experts every Monday through Friday. It's free and available wherever you get podcasts. Time now for our weekly farm report as we look at everything happening to the Bridgeport Islanders. Now, let's start with this. The Bridgeport Islanders arena getting a new corporate sponsor, going to be known as the Total Mortgage Arena. A 10-year naming rights agreement was reached with Total Mortgage as Webster Bank declined to purchase the naming rights. It was the Webster Bank Arena for 10 years. That deal expired in January, and now it will be known as the Total Mortgage. Look, that arena will play women's basketball East Regional Round, and the new sign already in place for that. So good for the Bridgeport Islanders. They're getting a new now the Total Mortgage Arena, Bridgeport. Big game for the Bridgeport Islanders, and we talked about that, and it was a successful overall for Bridgeport. Friday last weekend, they were home against the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins. Chris Terry, 2 goals. Andy Andreoff with 3 assists. That was his career high. And Arno Durando with a goal and an assist. Also played in his 100th pro game as the Islanders skated to a 5-4 win. Islanders down after one period, took a 3-2 lead heading into the third, and were able to hold on and get that job done. Meanwhile, the Islanders also Saturday picked up yet another win against the Scranton. A 4-2 victory for the Islanders. Stick it to cancer day at the arena, so that is always a good a good occasion, and the Islanders gave the win. So 2 straight wins over the Penguins. That is a big thing for this Islanders team. And why? Well, that's one of the teams they're chasing as they try to. It was the third straight win for the Bridgeport Islanders. The Penguins holding to that final playoff spot just a little bit ahead of the Islanders. Jakub Skarek, 36 saves in this one. And for Andy Andreoff, by the way, he played in his 500th professional game of his career. And Arno Durando getting a goal in his fourth straight game in this one. So overall, a solid win for the Islanders. Wilkes-Barre got off to the 1-0 lead, but by the end of the first period, the Islanders had scored twice to take the lead back, and it was a lead they did not relinquish. So a 4-2 win there for the Islanders. Unfortunately, on Sunday, the Islanders went to Hartford to take on the Wolfpack. They got a goal from Cole Bardreau. That was a shorthanded goal, his second shorty of the season, but the winning streak came to an end. A 4-1 loss to the Hartford Wolfpack. So the Islanders' top farm club coming up short against the Rangers' top farm club. I hate to even say that, quite honestly, but that is indeed what happened. And we look at the leading scorers right now. Chris Terry comfortably in the lead with 19 goals and 43 points. Otto Koivula next with 36 points, and he has 26 assists to lead the team. Andy Andreoff, 14 goals, 32 points. Arno Durando, 29 points, 11 of those goals. And as far as defensemen are concerned, Parker Wotherspoon, who did get called up in Zdeno Chara's absence, he leads all defensemen with 16 points, 3 goals, and 13 assists for Parker Wotherspoon. Grant Hutton right behind, 6 goals, 15 points for him. And again, it's sort of a close race right there among the defensemen. As far as the goaltending is concerned, Skarek now 13, 11, and 4, a .906 save percentage, and a 2.95 goals against. Corey Schneider in 19 games, 7, 9, and 2, a .910 save percentage, and a .305 goals against average. So seemingly the Bridgeport Islanders play better in front of Jakub Skarek, but better save percentage, slightly anyway, for Corey Schneider, but the better goals against average for Jakub Skarek. So those two fairly comparable overall, although Skarek better in the shootouts. He has saved almost 82% of his shootout shots, while Corey Schneider has saved almost 77% of his. On the schedule for this week now, the Bridgeport Islanders, again, with 3 games over the weekend. They'll open it up at home against the Hershey Bears Friday night at 7 o'clock Eastern time. Then 2 road games, Saturday and Sunday, at the Providence Bruins. Saturday at 7:05 p.m. in Providence. Sunday, 3:05 in the afternoon in Providence. Now, there is a game next Wednesday morning, a 10:35 a.m. game on the road against the Springfield Thunderbirds. So depending on when we do our weekly farm report, we may have that included in next week's report. So we do this almost every Wednesday. We do it every week, and we'll keep you up to date on the Bridgeport Islanders and everything that is happening to them. Coming up on this episode of the Locked On Islanders podcast, we've got our Islanders birthday of the day. And again, some more thoughts about the core of this team, who may be staying and who may be going at the trade deadline. All that and more coming up on this episode of the Locked On Islanders podcast. Time now for our Islanders birthday of the day. And we are early, but it will be 47th birthday on Thursday for former Islanders defenseman Andy Suggs, Ontario native, one big defenseman. 6 years at Michigan Tech was a show for the Minnesota Wild, the Atlanta Thrashers, and then joined the Islanders in 2007, 2008, all the way through the late stages of the 2009, 2010 season. So 3 years on the Isle. Finished 2009, 2010 with Ottawa, then played for Anaheim and Edmonton before retiring after the 2011, 2012 season. For his career, Big Andy, 676 games, 38 goals, 112 assists, and 150 points, 1,185 penalty minutes. His best season with the Islanders, statistically, 2008, 2009, 23 games due to injury, but scored 2 goals and 10 points, 40 penalty minutes in those games. As far as the most points in 2009, 2010, 54 games, 4 goals, 12 points, and 73 penalty minutes. The thing about Andy Sutton, not a dirty player, but, if you're a goalie, you want to have an Andy Sutton on your team to move opposing players out from in front of the Islanders' goal. We're going to go back and look at one of Andy Sutton's better games with the Islanders. October 21st, 2009, at the Nassau Veterans Memorial Coliseum, the Carolina Hurricanes come to town. Cam Ward is the goalie for Carolina, going up against Dwayne Rollason for the Islanders. And the Islanders get on the board first. Matt Molson, his 5th, with the assist to our Islanders' birthday of the day, Andy Sutton. Time of the goal, 8:11 at the end of the first period. The Islanders led 1-0. Brandon Witt of the Islanders and Scott Walker of Carolina dropping the gloves in that first period. In the second period, Blake Como headed off for interference, and Matt Cullen of Carolina tied it, his second of the year. Rod Brindamore and Joe Corvo helpers on that one at 5:34. Isles and Canes all even at 1 apiece. But the Islanders retook the lead a little less than 5 minutes later. Tim Jackman, his first from Nate Thompson and Richard Park. That was the Islanders' 4th line back then. That made it 2-1 Isles at 10:32. And then less than a minute after that, our Islanders' birthday of the day, Andy Sutton, his second of the year, from Jack Hillen and Blake Como at 11:21. Isles up 3-1 after 40 minutes, and things were looking up. But in the third period, Carolina getting back into the game. Eric Stahl, his third, from Ray Whitney and Yoni Pitkinen at 14:01. That made it 3-2. And then UC Jokinen, his third, from Yoni Pitkinen just a minute and 2 seconds later. And all of a sudden, that 3-1 lead, gone. 3-3. We go to overtime. Nobody scoring there. So we go to a shootout, and the Islanders get goals from Jeff Tambellini in the first round, Franz Nielsen with the patented backhand in the second round, and then John Tavares in the third round. All 3 of them score. Islanders win the shootout 3-2 as Dwayne Rollason was able to stop Sergei Samsonov in the first round. And that was enough for the Islanders to come away with the 4-3 win in this one. And for our Islanders' birthday of the day, Andy Sutton, 1 goal, 1 assist. He was a +1. He scored on his only shot on goal, and he picked up 2 penalty minutes for roughing in this game. So, again, a very happy birthday to Andy Sutton. Sutton will turn 47 on Thursday. He about the core of this team and who should stay in Varlamov, where they use Varlamov, but he may be more valuable right contract. What about guys like Josh Bailey? Could you get someone to take Josh Bailey with that big contract who has a couple more years left on it? Or do you still consider Bales part of the core? These are tough decisions that Lou Lamoriello is going to have to make, and we will break them down in order to give you the best idea. And again, always great to hear from you what you feel about some of these players and whether they belong as part of the core going forward for this Islander team. We will be back tomorrow. We'll have a full preview of the Islanders game against the Columbus Blue Jackets and a whole lot more. Thanks again for making Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Now make your second listen Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Hosts Steele Roden and Flip Livingstone help you become the expert of your fantasy league. It's free and available wherever you get podcasts. That does it for this episode of the Locked On Islanders podcast. Have a great day, everybody. Stay safe. And of course, let's go Islanders.